Rain fell in slow, heavy drops, hitting the cracked pavement with the dull sound of exhaustion. It was past midnight, and Jay sat slumped on the steps outside his tiny apartment, a plastic bag of instant noodles dangling loosely from his fingers. He had just come back from his third part-time job of the day, washing dishes at a dingy restaurant where the sink water was always cold and greasy. His back ached, his fingers were raw, and his mind was buzzing with numbers. Rent, tuition, his mother's hospital bills. Numbers that didn't add up, no matter how many times he tried to shuffle them in his head. The neon sign of the convenience store across the street flickered, casting his shadow in broken flashes. Somewhere in the distance, a cat yowled. Jay pulled out his phone, scrolling past messages from the university about overdue payments, from his landlord about, "One more late rent and you're out," from the hospital requesting, urgent confirmation of outstanding medical fees. His throat tightened. He had been telling himself for months that if he just worked harder, just pushed through, he could handle it. But he was drowning, and no one even noticed. That was when the black car pulled up. It was sleek and polished, the kind of car that didn't belong in his rundown neighborhood. The tinted window slid down halfway, and a man in a tailored suit leaned out. His hair was perfectly styled, his smile too smooth. "Kim Jay." The voice was low, steady, like someone who was used to giving orders. Jay stiffened. "Yeah. Who's asking?" The man's smile widened just slightly. "Let's talk somewhere private." Every instinct told Jay to walk away, but curiosity, and maybe a flicker of fear, made him follow when the man stepped out and opened the car door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather and something expensive he couldn't name. The driver didn't look at him. The suited man sat across from him, legs crossed, an elegant watch glinting on his wrist. "I represent a family," the man began, his words measured. "A family that has been at odds with another for a very long time. You may have heard of the Seo Group." Jay frowned. Of course he had. The Seo Group was practically untouchable, Korea's largest conglomerate, with its name stamped on everything from skyscrapers to department stores. And at the center of it all was Seo Min, the cold, untouchable heir that the tabloids loved to stalk. The man continued, watching Jay carefully. "We want you to get close to him, become someone he trusts, someone he falls for, and then you break him, publicly, humiliate him in a way he can't recover from." For a moment, Jay thought he had misheard. "You're joking." The man's expression didn't change. "No, we've done our research. You're charming, adaptable, good-looking. You can play the part. And you're desperate enough to consider it." Jay's jaw tightened. "I'm not a..." The man slid an envelope across the seat. It was thick, heavy. Jay's fingers hesitated before pulling it open. Inside was more cash than he had ever seen in his life. Enough to pay his debts, his rent, his mother's hospital bills. Enough to breathe again. "This is just for agreeing," the man said. "When the job is done, you'll get 5 times that amount." Jay's heart pounded. Felt wrong. Filthy. But the image of his mother lying pale in her hospital bed flashed in his mind. The sound of his landlord pounding on his door. The humiliation of being turned away from classes because he couldn't pay tuition. He swallowed hard. "Why me? You could hire anyone." The man's eyes sharpened. "Because Seo Min trusts no one. And because you don't matter enough to be on his radar. That makes you perfect." The words stung, but they were true. They handed him a slim folder before dropping him off back at his apartment. Inside were photos of Seo Min at business events, leaving high-end restaurants, walking through the university campus in perfectly tailored coats. His expression was the same in every picture. Distant, unreadable, as if the world were nothing more than background noise. Jay stared at the photos long after the car had gone. 2 days later, he saw Seo Min in person for the first time. It was at a university charity gala, the kind of event Jay would normally never be invited to, but the suited man had arranged for him to work there as part of the serving staff. The hall glittered with chandeliers, the air filled with the low hum of conversation and the clinking of champagne glasses. Seo Min stood near the center, a glass of wine in hand, his posture effortlessly straight. He wore a black suit with a subtle silver sheen, his dark hair falling just above his sharp eyes. People hovered around him, laughing too loudly, trying too hard. But he barely reacted, offering only polite nods before turning away. Jay had imagined arrogance. A smug, spoiled rich boy. But the reality was colder. Seo Min's presence was like a wall of glass. Impossible to touch, impossible to see through. When Jay approached with a tray of champagne flutes, their eyes met for the briefest moment. Something in Seo Min's gaze was sharp enough to cut, yet strangely tired. "You're new?" Seo Min said quietly, his voice low enough that only Jay could hear. Jay blinked. "First night." Seo Min's eyes lingered on him for a second longer than necessary before he turned back to the conversation he was having with a board member. It was nothing, a small exchange, but Jay felt his pulse quicken. That night, as he walked home with sore feet and the faint scent of champagne clinging to his clothes, Jay told himself it was just a job, just a game. He didn't know yet that the game was about to play him. The first step was always the hardest. At least, that's what Jay told himself as he stood outside the library, leaning against the cold marble wall. His contact, the suited man, had told him that Seo Min visited this place every Thursday evening without fail. No entourage, no bodyguards. Just him, his laptop, and a fortress of silence. Jay spotted him instantly. Even in a crowd of students, Seo Min stood out. The black turtleneck, the clean lines of his coat, the way his posture carried an unspoken authority. People seemed to move around him, as if they felt his presence before they even saw him. Jay followed at a distance, pretending to browse books. He didn't have a plan for today, just an excuse to start a conversation. But when Seo Min sat at a corner table and put on noise-canceling headphones, the wall between them felt higher than ever. It wasn't until the librarian appeared, struggling with a stack of heavy boxes, that Jay's opportunity came. One of the boxes slipped, and without thinking, Jay caught it before it hit the floor. "Thanks," the librarian whispered, startled. Jay smiled, shifting the weight in his arms. "Where do these go?" As they passed by Seo Min's table, Jay set the box down with a soft thud. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Seo Min glance up briefly, his gaze flicking over Jay's face before dropping back to his laptop. A tiny crack, but a crack nonetheless. Over the next few weeks, Jay made himself a quiet fixture in Seo Min's routine. He'd accidentally run into him on campus, share an umbrella when it rained, hold the elevator door when Seo Min was carrying coffee. Always casual, never pushy. Seo Min didn't warm up quickly, but he didn't shut Jay out either. There were moments, small, almost invisible, when the ice thinned. A short conversation about a book they'd both read. A faint curl of his lips when Jay made a dry remark about their economics professor's obsession with luxury pens. The first time Jay made him laugh. Really laugh, it was almost startling. They were sitting outside the campus cafe, steam curling from their cups, when a pigeon strutted across the table and tried to steal Seo Min's croissant. Jay deadpanned. "Guess even the birds know you're rich." Seo Min's laugh was quick and unexpected, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "You're ridiculous," he said, shaking his head, but his eyes were softer. Jay felt the warmth of that look long after the moment had passed. One night, a thunderstorm rolled over the city. Jay was on his way back from a late shift when he spotted Seo Min in the quad, standing under a tree, his coat pulled tight around him. The rain was coming down hard, soaking them both in seconds. "What are you doing out here?" Jay called, jogging over. Seo Min didn't answer right away. His gaze was fixed on something in the distance, a small memorial plaque on the ground. "My father hated storms," Seo Min said finally, his voice quiet but steady. "Said they made him feel trapped. He died during one." Jay froze. This wasn't in the file. The folder of intelligence on Seo Min had been thick with financial scandals and business strategies, but there had been nothing about this. "I'm sorry," Jay said, and for once, he meant it without reservation. Seo Min gave him a small, unreadable look before stepping out from under the tree. "Come on, you'll get sick standing here." That night, Jay lay awake in bed, the sound of rain still echoing in his ears. The closer he got to Seo Min, the harder it became to remember why he had started this. When they studied together in the library, Seo Min would occasionally fall asleep with his head resting on his hand, the harsh lines of his face relaxing into something almost boyish. When they grabbed quick dinners between classes, Seo Min would ask questions, not shallow ones, but ones that made Jae feel seen. "You always dodge personal questions," Seo Min said one evening, stirring his ramen absent-mindedly. "Why?" Jae smirked. "Maybe I'm mysterious. Maybe you're hiding something," Seo Min countered, but his tone was light, teasing. Jae laughed it off, but his chest felt tight. It was during one of these almost normal nights that things shifted. They were leaving the campus library late, the streets mostly empty, when a group of students rounded the corner, loud and half-drunk. One of them stumbled into Jae, muttering something slurred and dismissive. But then another recognized Seo Min. "Hey, it's the Golden Prince himself," the guy sneered. "Too good to say hi to the commoners?" Jae expected Seo Min to ignore them. Instead, one of the drunk students shoved him. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to jolt him back a step. Before Jae could think, he stepped between them, his voice sharp. "Back off." The guys laughed and walked away, muttering insults under their breath. Seo Min looked at Jae for a long moment, the rain from earlier still clinging faintly to the air between them. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "Yeah, I did," Jae replied, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. It should have been simple. The plan was to get close, gain trust, set the trap. But with every shared glance, every unguarded moment, Jae's script was slipping. One night, as they walked past the lit windows of the art building, Seo Min slowed his pace. "I used to paint," he said suddenly. Jae glanced at him. "What happened?" "My father said it was a waste of time, that I had responsibilities." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a quiet acceptance that made Jae's chest ache. "Maybe he was wrong," Jae said. Seo Min gave him a strange look. "You're dangerous, you know that?" Jae forced a grin. "Why's that?" "Because you make me think about things I stopped thinking about a long time ago." That night, Jae sat in his apartment, the envelope of cash still hidden under his bed. He stared at it for a long time, his hands curled into fists. This was supposed to be easy. It wasn't supposed to feel like this.
Time winter settled over the city, Jae could no longer tell where the act ended and where he began. The days with Seo Min had become the brightest parts of his life. Quiet study sessions in the library, coffee runs between lectures, long walks through the nearly empty streets after midnight when neither of them wanted to go home. But the file under his bed was still there. And so was the voice in his head, reminding him why he'd started this. It happened on a Wednesday evening. Seo Min had invited Jae to his apartment for the first time. It was on the top floor of a luxury building, with a view of the city that seemed to stretch into forever. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the pale gold light of the room, and everything, from the furniture to the books on the shelves, was neat, intentional, precise. "You live here alone?" Jae asked, looking around. Seo Min shrugged out of his coat. "It's quieter that way." They ordered dinner, simple takeout, nothing fancy, and spent hours just talking. Somewhere between stories and laughter, Seo Min's walls began to crumble. He told Jae about the constant pressure, the expectations, the feeling of being trapped in a life that wasn't his choice. "You're the first person I can talk to without feeling like I'm being measured," Seo Min said quietly. The words hit Jae like a punch. He wanted to tell him the truth right there. He wanted to confess everything, to explain that this had started as a lie but wasn't anymore. But the fear of losing Seo Min's trust, of losing him entirely, was too much. That night, as Jae left, Seo Min walked him to the elevator. Just before the doors closed, Seo Min said, almost under his breath, "You matter to me, Jae." The doors shut before Jae could respond. He leaned back against the elevator wall, his chest tight, his palms damp. He'd been sent to destroy this man, and now he was terrified of hurting him. But the rival family wasn't patient. The next day, the suited man called. "It's time," he said simply. "We've set the trap. All you have to do is get him to that party tomorrow night." We'll take care of the rest. Jay's stomach twisted. What happens at the party? The pause. Then, you'll see. The party was hosted at a private club, the kind of place with gold-trimmed walls and waiters who moved like shadows. Seo Min didn't like events like this, but Jay convinced him, half-truths about networking, about it being low pressure. When they arrived, the room was already thick with champagne bubbles and murmured gossip. Cameras flashed. Jay stayed close to Seo Min, feeling an odd need to shield him from the stares. Halfway through the night, Seo Min stepped outside to take a call. That's when it happened. A commotion near the bar. Voices raised. Jay turned and saw a man, clearly drunk, stumbling towards Seo Min's table. The man's words were loud enough to draw attention. Isn't that the Seo heir? I heard he... The rest was drowned out by the sudden glare of camera flashes. Photographers, too many for such a private party, poured in like they'd been waiting. Someone shoved a drink into Seo Min's hand, someone else pushed a stranger toward him. In seconds, the perfect image of the cold, controlled heir was being dismantled, painted into a scene of chaos and scandal. Jay's blood ran cold. This was the plan. And then he saw the suited man across the room, watching with a faint smile. Seo Min came back inside, frowning at the sudden noise. His eyes moved to Jay, looking for explanation, for help. But before Jay could speak, one of the rival family's people stepped forward, accidentally, spilling a drink on Seo Min and shoving him into the fray. The photographers went wild. It was over in minutes. But the damage was done. Seo Min turned to Jay, confusion and hurt clouding his face. What was that? Jay opened his mouth, but nothing came out. And in that hesitation, Seo Min's eyes sharpened. You knew. His voice was low, almost calm, but the words were razor sharp. Jay shook his head. It's not. Don't lie to me. The finality in Seo Min's voice felt like ice water down Jay's spine. The ride back to his apartment was silent. Seo Min didn't look at him once. When they reached Jay's building, Seo Min finally spoke. Was any of it real? Jay's mouth went dry. He wanted to say yes, to explain, to beg for a chance, but the words stuck in his throat. Seo Min didn't wait for an answer. Don't contact me again. The car door shut with a heavy, final click, and then he was gone. The story broke online within hours. Edited photos, twisted headlines, wild accusations. The Seo Group's PR team scrambled, but the damage was already spreading. Jay sat in the dark of his apartment, the envelope of cash on his table. He didn't touch it. The phone buzzed, messages from the suited man congratulating him, telling him the rest of the payment was on its way. Jay stared at the money until the edges of his vision blurred. It felt heavier than anything he'd ever carried. He had gotten what he'd been promised. So why did it feel like he'd lost everything? 3 days. That's how long Jay had been staring at his phone, waiting for a message that would never come. The news cycle had been merciless. Every channel replayed the same distorted clips of the party, the same twisted commentary. Social media fed on it like vultures, rumors, fabricated witness accounts, even fake videos. And through it all, Seo Min stayed silent. Jay knew why. The Seo Group's PR machine would be telling him to lie low until the storm passed. But this wasn't a storm, it was a demolition. And Jay had helped plant the explosives. The envelope of cash still sat on his table, untouched. It might as well have been radioactive. On the 4th day, Jay made a decision. He didn't care what it cost him. He was going to make this right. The first step was finding proof. He went back to the club, talking to staff, to anyone who might have seen the rival family's people that night. Most ignored him. Some told him to leave before he got himself in trouble. But eventually he found a bartender who remembered something. A man in a tailored suit slipping cash to one of the photographers before the chaos began. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Jay used the contact information the suited man had given him, pretending to ask about the next job. He recorded the call, pushing for details, acting like he wanted a bigger cut. And the man, smug in his victory, let slip just enough. The rival family's name, their goal to dismantle the golden boy's perfect image. The next step was harder, getting the evidence to Seo Min. Jay showed up at the Seo Group headquarters, but the security guards didn't even let him through the revolving doors. He tried calling, texting, nothing. Every attempt went unanswered. Finally, he decided to take the risk that could ruin him completely. He posted a short video online, not the whole truth, but enough to get attention. In it, he admitted to being approached and paid by a rival family to get close to Seo Min, to lure him into a setup. He blurred the names, but he left no doubt about who had been targeted and why. The backlash was instant. Some people called him a liar trying to clear his own name. Others demanded to know who the rival family was. But buried among the chaos was one notification Jay had been hoping for, a message from an unknown number. Come to the Han River. Midnight. Come alone. The riverfront was quiet when Jay arrived, the winter air biting at his skin. Seo Min was there, leaning against the railing, the city lights shimmering on the dark water behind him. For a moment, Jay couldn't move. Seo Min looked the same, but different, more closed off, more guarded. You came, Jay said quietly. Seo Min's gaze didn't soften. Why now? Jay took a shaky breath. Because I can't, his voice broke. I can't leave it like this. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I need you to know the truth. He explained everything, the initial offer, the money, the plan. He told him about the call he'd recorded, the bartender's statement, the rival family's involvement. He handed Seo Min a flash drive with all the files. When he finished, Seo Min was silent for a long time. The only sound was the wind moving across the river. Finally, Seo Min asked, was any of it real? Jay's throat tightened. Every moment after I got to know you was real. At first, it was a job. But then, you stopped being a target. You became, his voice faltered. You became the only thing that felt real in my life. Seo Min's eyes searched his face, but Jay couldn't tell what he was looking for. The next morning, the headlines shifted. Seo Min's legal team had moved fast, suing the rival family for defamation, presenting the evidence Jay had given him. The narrative began to turn. The cold heir was now the victim of a calculated smear campaign. Jay didn't expect thanks. He didn't even expect forgiveness. But when he saw Seo Min's name slowly being cleared, it was enough. A week later, Jay was leaving campus when he saw him. Seo Min stood by the gates, hands in his coat pockets, watching him with that same unreadable gaze. Walk with me, Seo Min said. They walked in silence until they reached the quiet corner of the campus garden. The winter air smelled faintly of pine, and the ground crunched softly under their shoes. Seo Min stopped and turned to face him. You destroyed my trust, he said bluntly. Jay nodded. I know. But you also tried to fix it when you didn't have to. Jay looked at him, heart in his throat. Seo Min's expression was still guarded, but there was a flicker, small, fragile, of something softer in his eyes. I'm not saying I forgive you. Not yet. But, if you're willing to be honest from now on, maybe we can start over. Slowly. Jay's chest felt tight, but in a way that was almost hopeful. I'll take slow, he said quietly. Seo Min gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Then we'll see where it goes. As they walked back toward the campus, their steps fell into sync. The winter air was still cold, but it didn't feel as heavy as before. It wasn't a clean ending. It wasn't a perfect one. But it was a beginning. And for Jay, that was enough.